Hi, everybody. Welcome to Drag Racing Heritage, presented by Drag Racing's Golden Era. This is a podcast that we have dedicated to the Heritage Series and nostalgia racing, and we're, as always, glad that you're here. Tonight, we have guest Dan Pettinato, who is the driver of the Maury and Pettinato Rat Poison Fuel Altered, and we're glad to have him on the program, and we're going to learn all about Fuel Altereds and what's going on in the Heritage Series. Hi, Dan. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Hey, Randy, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be on your show.
Well, we always, as you know, our show has been primarily dedicated to drag racing history. So we always start this out with, what's your history? What's your family history? Is there a history behind you and all of this?
Yeah, I'm second generation. I'm blessed to be born into it, I guess, or maybe cursed. I don't know, depending on how you look at it. But my dad, just like a lot of guys that you talk to, second generation guys, he started in the 50s drag racing all through the 60s, and by the late 60s they were running a junior fuel car, John Maury and Frank Pettinato, and that they built it themselves in house. And then fuel altereds were becoming really popular, and there was a really neat circuit in Maryland where we were from. It was called by the Lepard family. It was called Fuel Altereds Unlimited, and it was all A fuel altereds, which is unusual. There was only a few out west, right? But it was real prolific in the mid-Atlantic in the late 60s, early 70s. So they decided to ditch the junior fuel car and build a fuel altered, A fuel altered. And they built their first one in 69. And it was a 1930 Austin Bantam. Dad came up with the name Rat Poison because most of the cars were 427 Chevys. And they always ran the Hemi, always ran the late model Hemi from day one. So that's how it started. And I grew up in it. And a long road, here I
am. Well, yeah. Tell me about Maury. That's the other name that's on your car. Tell me about that.
John Maury was a very special guy. Everybody that knew him loved him. And unfortunately, he didn't have a very long life. He died of cancer at the age of 40 in 1979. He was a fabricator extraordinaire. If you look at any of his and Dad's cars, they were just as nice as anything Woody Gilmore and Don Long built. They were nice. They built everything in-house 100%. And always had cutting-edge stuff for the time. They ran A fuel altered all the way up into Pro Comp and with a different series of cars. And just to give you an idea, by 73, they had a Milodon in the car, which is pretty revolutionary in those days. And it was a big stroker with a 2-speed or 3-speed Lenco at first, and later went to a 2-speed. And in 74, they developed a nitrous oxide system with the Milodon, and they would run, copious amounts of nitro, of course. And they built their own barrel valve and made their own nitrous system that nobody ever even knew about. They weren't hiding it, but nobody knew what it was. They had a barrel valve underneath the throttle pedal, and they had a medical grade bottle in the car. It would go through NHRA tech, like at Bristol, Tennessee, or not Bristol, Tennessee, but Maple Grove or Englishtown or something, and Bristol for IHRA and Rockingham and that for IHRA. And they thought it was a fire bottle. And they didn't say, hey, this is nitrous oxide, but they never asked either. So the car, by 74, it was running 7.0s right at 200 miles an hour injected. Yeah. And then that went away, and my family moved out west because of fuel altereds, because of the fuel altered nationals in Tucson, Arizona. And when we did that, John stayed back in Maryland, and they built a blower car for Pro Comp, an blown alcohol car, similar to like the Boggs brothers, just like that. And before he got too sick to drive, he actually won Division II IHRA Pro Comp championship with the blown car. And then it's a shame, he wasted away and he died. If he'd have lived, he was one of those guys that was so smart. He'd have been a Dale Armstrong. He was on his way. And if anybody that knew him in those days would tell you the same thing. And he could drive. He was a heck of a driver as well. So Dad was a tuner on the car, and they built the cars together, but John always drove them.
Well, and you probably heard me say this before. It's one of those lost arts that's happened in drag racing, at least in the big show, that guys get together, they build their cars and they take them out and they run them, and they're basically running against themselves to see how much better they can do each time they
Right.
show up to the track. The innovation was phenomenal back then.
Yeah, it really was. And it changed so fast. We talk about that a lot today. Our cars are older. They're years and years old. Everybody's are most of the time. Back then, 2 years, your car was ancient. You'd have to update, and everything evolved so quick. They were smoking the tires with a lock-up clutch, and then went to the slipper because the tire technology changed. The tracks changed with it. The slipper clutch came along, and the ETs plummeted, and the story, and more power, more clutch, and here we are. But
Yeah.
today it's nowhere near as the evolution of it has slowed way down for lots of reasons I'm sure you're aware of. But yeah, back then things changed an awful lot. Sure did.
It's one of them interesting conversations that I had with Steve Gibbs that, during that period of time when there was so much change happening and so much track prep going on, and they were changing just the way they did everything. And he said to me one time, he said, we always tried to make the best decisions in the interest of drag racing. He goes, maybe sometimes we just didn't get it right all the time, that we
Yeah.
should have backed off a little bit.
Yeah. There's probably some wisdom in that, but you only get one shot at doing this. You do the best you can.
Yeah.
Nothing's
Well,
perfect. Nothing's
you're,
perfect. And that's something I think as a group, especially field altered guys, that we need to realize, man, look, be happy with what we have.
yeah,
These things, I'm old enough to remember when these things were almost non-existent. And if it wasn't for guys like Ron Hines, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today.
yeah,
And so what I'm seeing now, the field alters are plentiful. There's
yeah.
probably more field alters in the country today than any time in history. And people get caught up, well, it's got to be 89 inches. It's got to have a 24-inch crank center line. Well, you got a wing on it. What are you, an alien? You can't. How you pick? Our sport is old. It's fuel offers have been around over 60 years, and so where do you choose? Where do you choose? Our car, we built it. I love the early stuff. Believe me, it's when I grew up. Dad's longest car was 102 inches, and but I grew up at Tucson and Orange County and out west in my formative years, and we built a car that you would have seen in the mid to late 70s in Orange County or at a show in Tucson, and there's a balance there. Let's face it, the cars were 2 seconds slower than they are now, and these things were going faster than they were ever supposed to go. So there's got to be a little bit of evolution there. There's an argument. If you look at the nostalgia top fuel, you could do the same thing there. Should you have canards on it? They were never 225 long. You want to make it right, make it 180 inches. Take the wings off of it. Put a pedal clutch in it. I mean, come on. Where do you stop? So I think as a group, I think we all just need to chill and enjoy what we have.
Well, and it's one of those arguments that I hear quite often. Well, that's just a funny car with a altered body on it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, there's way
No.
more aerodynamics going on in a funny car
Oh,
than one of these cars.
that is so true. And this thing has never been anything but a fuel altered ever and dedicated, and it's never had a body on it other than this. And I learned a lot about. You're so right, and I never went fast enough in my life to matter for the aerodynamics. But we had a Fiat car before this one, and we grafted a 34 Ford roof on it, so it was completely enclosed, kind of like a funny car. It had an escape hatch. But that car was so slick, and we didn't know it. We just thought it looked cool. We thought it would work. Let's see, in 2019, with a wore out KB in it, and nowhere near as aggressive a tune up as I'm running now, it went 590, 250 with
Oh,
yeah, and I haven't gone that quick or fast yet with this Roadster because of the negative area. The aerodynamics play when you get up around 250. It's huge. If you were to put a funny car body on this, it'd run 570s off the trailer.
Wow.
There's that much of a difference in aerodynamics when you're going that fast.
Well, the funny thing about that is, if you think back, early 80s, mid 80s, that's
Yeah,
what funny cars are running in 250s on the big show.
that's
That's
right.
amazing.
That's right. I remember that very well. Yeah,
Well, I
550s was a big deal.
so I guess one of the things I want to ask you about is I talked to you about this, that last year they said that the Bowling Green race for Fuel Alters was going to be an open race. But then you explained to me that, and I did not realize this, that you guys are still indexed, even though it was an open competition, you're still indexed at what,
Right.
6.0?
It's 6-0 for a lot of reasons, and I'm okay with that. Um, it keeps us from having to have a whole lot, thousands and thousands of dollars of extra equipment on the car just to run a 590 or better at an NHRA race. And it keeps the price down. It keeps the parts happy. It's a little bit easier to do. It's not quite the thrash. And it's still a pretty good ride. I mean, 6.0 is pretty good. It's a challenge to keep it above 6.0. It really is. But you learn, and we don't do it every week. We only do it a couple times a year, so it's all right. But it is
Well,
an open competition. The God bless Ron Hope
yeah.
and Dave Huff for everything they did over the years, but that's gone now. So yeah, it's definitely an open competition. If you're licensed and you got a car that passes the requirements, the safety requirements, and you got at least 80% in the tank, you can run.
Well, speaking of Ron Hope, I know Brian is running that rat trap yet. I think his son is actually stepping into the seat on that one. So I'm glad to see
Yes,
that family tradition continue. I got priceless footage out of Bowling Green with Ron Hope showing up, and he passed very shortly after that race. I'll put that up over the top of this, but that was priceless
we sure
footage.
did. Michael's doing a great job. He's the next generation coming up, much like my son Robbie. They're close in age, and but yeah, I was fortunate enough to I got to say goodbye to Ron at the reunion, and as you know, he didn't live but just a few days later.
Yeah.
So I was blessed to be able to. What a great man and a dear friend, and I love the man. But he did an awful lot for everybody. He always greeted you with a smile and a handshake, and did an awful lot for Fuel Alters in the sport in general.
Speaking of other fuel altered guys, I was just messaging with Rich Guasco the other day. His health isn't exactly the greatest either. I was sort of sad to see Pierre Hell didn't show up down at Bowling Green, but I understand. There's another car that's got a storied history and rich in the sport.
Sure does. Yep, absolutely. They're always tough, always tough. And that is the toughest old, coming from an Italian, that's the toughest old Italian man I ever met. I wouldn't tangle with him, even at his age. But
I
I love
had
him. I love him too, man.
I had Steve Reyes say to me one time, he goes, Rich Guasco was one of those kind of guys. You could have shot him in the face with a gun. He would have got up off the ground and gone, "Yeah, is that all you got?"
Totally, totally. He
So,
he still dishes it out, man, even at 85 or whatever he is.
you said I actually had this question on here for in my notes here for you. You said that right now there's more fuel altereds than in any other time in the history of the sport
Yeah,
around the country.
I believe
Um,
it is.
I That's what I was going to ask you about. What do we got going on nationwide here? I know the Nitro Chaos. You guys are involved in that too, correct?
Yeah. Yes, there are a whole lot of cars in the Midwest, as you know. There's probably a dozen in Texas alone. All through the Midwest, all the way up into Iowa and Michigan and whatnot. There's double A fuel alters. There are a few on this side of the country. Um, there are a couple that are being built now. Um, there's a Mike Sullivan type Fiat that's being put together out of New York as we speak. Um, Paul Romine has got a brand new double A fuel alter that's going to run with us this year. That'll be a hoot. I used to race with him in Nostalgia Top Fuel in the 90s. Great guy, as you know, and then of course all the stuff out west. So there's quite a. I haven't counted them up, but I would not be surprised if there's somewhere around 50 AA fuel alternates in the country.
Oh, that's
There's a lot.
incredible.
The
That's
problem is we're
amazing.
all segmented. Yeah, we're all all over different balkanized groups, you could say.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but yeah, the Nitro
that
Chaos
speaks
thing,
well.
cool. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true. It's healthy.
we've all been talking about. I'm sorry to step on you here, but we've all been talking
No,
about
cool.
what's the future of drag racing look like, and on the big show events. I love the NHRA. I love what those guys do over there, but I don't know how sustainable that is with the dollars that have to be pumped in it. And in my opinion, what you guys are doing, the nostalgia groups, that's the future of drag racing. I just believe that's true.
Well, and to an extent, I believe you, and I'm agree with you rather. But the big show has its place. Everybody knows the story there and how the Nitro deals run and what it's become. Everybody gets that, and it's cool. But the majority of the people majority of the common folk can't even nor want to do that. Can't financially or want to. It's we've been under our deal. What do you want? Whatever you want to call it, man. Grassroots Nitro, nostalgia, whatever. I've been involved with it since the late '80s, and we've been underground for a long time. And now it's in the last few years, it's big and it's growing. And then you get guys like Chris and Tara Graves that do the Nitro Chaos, and it's unbelievable, man. And now there's fuel altered chaos. So you got Funny Car Chaos, Nitro Chaos, and fuel altered chaos, which will be running for the first time inaugurally in Tucson in November, which is going to be a barn burner, man. That's going to be a big deal. They're calling it the old school fuel altered nationals again. There's already, I think there's 17, 18 cars already pre-entered for a
Wow.
November race. Yeah, that's going to be pretty cool.
Well, I'll tell you what the turn on is for me and for probably the fan base that, our viewers, we can see our demographics are 40 and over. There's very few people in that younger group that tune into what we're doing here or watch any of our videos. So for me,
Yeah,
this takes me back to a time when I like a Great Lakes Dragaway. I could walk down in the pits. There's Don Garlitz down there, and he'll come over and shake your hand with his greasy, filthy hand and crawl back underneath that car. I mean, this is what it reminds me of.
true,
You're up close and personal with everybody. We're able to get
true.
access to you.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a throwback to that. I remember those days well. I toured with my dad, and I remember him. I got a lot of stories, but yeah, it's as close to that. It'll never be that, but it's close to that as you'll find anymore. And these, we run these things hard. I mean, they are full on ground pound and nitro cars, and the sport. You try to talk to common folk, and John Force, Joe Amato, cool, but they don't understand that you can still do it this way.
Yeah.
But it's getting prolific, as you're saying, man. It's starting to gain traction. It has been for a while, actually. There's a lot of venues to go see this stuff.
I have to ask you. I
Mm-hmm.
see some pretty cool stuff hanging on the wall back there. I see the rear end body part off of a
Yeah,
looks like an altered. What is that? Tell me about that.
yeah. That's a 1930 Bantam or Austin Bantam that was called Stone Crude. It was an A fuel altered that ran with my dad in that Lepard circuit. It was campaigned by Doug Christensen, and Don Settle was the driver, who's still a very good friend of mine, family friend. I've known him since I was in diapers. And that car, well, I saw it all the time. And it's hard to tell you. Believe me when I tell you that thing was as wild as you can imagine. It here's I got just a picture of it here on this bench.
Go ahead. Yeah, hold that up. There
I
you
mean,
go.
that thing was 90% bleach burnouts, sideways through the lights, crazy. But that car, there's a lot of stories about that particular car, and I got a chance to get a hold of the body, and it's exactly how it was, the lettering and everything. It's from like '69, and that car. One of the craziest things that car ever did is it was at a track in Lynchburg, Virginia, and it went off the end of it. Donnie went off the end of it with no chute. At the very end of the track, it went uphill with a 2-lane country road at the end of it. He jumped it like Evil Knievel. Happened to be a car coming, I swear. He jumped over it like with the shootout over. Finally came out over the track, over the road, excuse me. Landed, went through a farmer's fence, and was staring at a bull. And uh, Dad and John had just made one, so they're clamoring down with everybody else down the bank and across the road to see how he's doing. And he's getting out of the car, and a farmer is coming at him with a shotgun and calling him USOB, you're paying for my fence, and all this crap. And Donnie's pulling his stuff off. He's checking to see if he's still alive. And I said, "What do I do? What do I do?" He said, that guy's pissed. He's coming after me." He said, "Don't pay attention. Just ignore him." And they start pushing the car. And they push the car out of the field, back out into the road, the 2-lane highway. They hand pushed it up into the front gate of Lynchburg, Virginia Dragway, and they pushed it down into the pits. Long story short, the police came, found into the pits. They found Donnie and they cited him for it. He had to go to court in Virginia, and and the old people that were driving that car, they said it was an aeroplane, Your Honor. It flew over us. Donnie was cracking. He lost it right there in the courtroom, and he was getting kicked under the table by the lawyer or whatever, and to shut up. But they threw it out. So it was a write up of it in Drag News or something. That car did that. Yeah,
that is a great story.
Yeah,
We love
story,
stories
man.
like that.
Yeah,
Do you do much match racing on top of the chaos events and the Heritage Series?
yeah. We mainly do match racing.
Okay.
We've got a full schedule. You can, if anybody's interested, it's on. We have a Facebook page of Brat Poison AAFA, and it's listed on there. But we do a lot of match racing. We're going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Martin, Michigan, all points in between this year. So we're starting out in Ennis at the Texas Motorplex in April for the Nitro Chaos deal, and then I think we go to Jackson, South Carolina, Carolina Dragway for a match race, and then we'll go to Huntsville, Alabama for a match race, and then Bowling Green, and then Cincinnati, Ohio for a Nitro Chaos event, and then I think we go to Martin, Michigan after that, and then Bakersfield and Tucson. They got like 9 events. And there's actually we booked one on Thursday night, so there's actually a couple more creeping in. We've got as many as we can do and still have a job.
Yeah.
I'd have to quit. I've turned away a bunch. I just can't do it all physically.
Yeah. Well, so how are these tracks doing? That's a question for you. You've been to all these tracks. How are they doing? Are they putting butts in the stands? Do things look good?
Most of the time, the stands are packed. Once in a while, it'll be weird. There won't be anybody there. We had that hurricane really bad here, and we went to a race very soon afterward, and there wasn't hardly anybody there. Yeah. So probably should have pulled the plug on that one.
How did you guys survive the hurricane? You're doing okay down there?
We were just about 40, 50 miles south of the epicenter in Nashville, where all of it went bad. I lost a bunch of trees, and I thought the roof was going to come off. It was gnarly. I ain't never seen anything like it. I heard, I always hear that you hear that freight train sound when a tornado. I heard that, man, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, yeah, we did a lot better than a lot of people, so we're blessed, and God protected us. But
I'm going to be out your way, and middle of May, I'm going to be coming out to JED's startups party out there, spring startup party. Yeah, I'll be out there for that. We filmed it last year, and apparently by us being out there with our cameras, JED, what did he say to me? He said, "Boy, you stirred up a blank storm. You stirred up a storm because now he's got other people coming out of the woodwork that want to come out there."
Yeah, I saw that rascal the other day. We're over at the shop all the time. They're doing stuff of course pretty regular.
Well, I suppose I'm going to see you down there.
If it's not, you should be there. I don't know about the race car, but I'll definitely be there.
Yeah, we're going to be down there. I'm going to come down this year. I'm going to go down for the Friday night setup and the BS session that goes on. Beer drinking and BS.
That'll be thick. Yeah.
So I got to ask you about the Heritage Series.
Yeah,
Bowling Green, 3 cars.
yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
they
It was a little disappointing.
do you
We had
what
six
was
the
the
year
reason
before.
for that? Do you know?
Um, we had six the year before. A couple of our main guys, like Randy Bradford
Yeah,
and Tom Padilla, they had the fortune to go to the good fortune to race in the UK last year at the same time. So they would have been there. So that would have brought us up to probably, sounds pathetic, but five.
yeah,
But we had six the year before. I don't know. People are going to have to tow if they want to run, and a lot of those guys that are west of Kentucky, if they went one time, they would make a point to come back because, as you know, it's such a cool place. There's
yeah.
nothing like it. You want to talk about a time machine. I mean, Bakersfield's sick, and I run there many a time, and the history there just oozes. But man, you can feel it at Bowling Green.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it in the world than that racetrack. So hopefully, we'll get some guys to come back
Well, that'd
and
be great. Randy Bradford, I did know that
support it. Yeah,
he was at what Santa Pod. Those guys were over there racing, which good for
yeah.
him.
So,
I like
right.
Randy Bradford. He's a cool dude. Well,
One of my best pals.
The thing about Bowling Green is, my buddy Mike Couch, uh, his dad Buster was on the starting line all them years, and they did the sports nationals down at Bowling Green in the '70s, and you had people like Jerry Gwynn down there racing, and some of the pictures from those events, that track looks exactly the same as it did back then. Maybe the K rails are a little different, but
Other than the K rail, but it had walls. It had concrete walls pretty early on, but the
yeah,
K rail was first, of course. But yeah, if you look at the stands, they're packed out just like that now at the reunion. Well, not the reunion anymore. What do they call it? The Wally Parks
yeah.
Nationals. But they're packed just like that. And as a spectator, man, you haven't seen nitromethane sit underneath that covered grandstand because it pounds. I've done it. I've sat up there just to hear it when during qualifying and stuff, and it pounds. It's a different sound than underneath that metal awning all the way down the grandstands. It's pretty, and you got the old theater type chairs with the armrests and everything. It's a trip, man. There ain't nothing like it.
Yeah.
Hotter than the gates of hell, but other than that,
How do you guys deal with the heat? Because I know I'm out in the starting line. It kicks my ass. I mean,
yeah,
literally, I remember the first
it's
year
a
I did
struggle,
this.
man. It's a challenge. It takes a lot of controlled breathing. Um, I've got a couple little tricks to keep us cool, and you'd probably laugh about them. They're so basic, but they work. And I'll stick a. You're not supposed to do this. Some people say if you're on fire, it could turn you into a potato. But I take like a poncho and stick it down in an ice chest, and then it's like it's a towel with a hole in it. And I'll pull it over my head, ice cold, and then put my jacket on, and it keeps you a little. As long as it keeps the blood flowing up to your neck, and then we've got the fresh air in the helmet helps. It doesn't help tremendously, but it helps just enough to take the edge off. So I would
I,
totally recommend the fresh air in your helmet when you're running at Bowling Green.
I
But
that
I've gotten out of the car on the other end and gulping for air like you just came out of water, just trying to breathe, pulling my
that
helmet
first
off.
year that first year that I filmed down there, I remember Mike Couch was up in the stands, and it was the end of the first day, like 4 o'clock
Yeah.
in the afternoon, and it was brutal that year. It was like
Oh,
98 degrees, and I
yeah.
sent a message to Mike. I'm like, dude, I do not feel good. I have got to get out of here. I'm
Yeah.
feeling dizzy, and I'm about ready to pass out.
You got to take care of yourself. And then, after you get out of the car and you're dying like that, then what do? We take it back to the pits and pull the thing apart for a couple hours. We're stupid like that, Everybody, all of us nitro racers, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's hardcore, isn't it? I
It's
you know
hardcore.
I respect all you guys, and I'll tell you why. Because the way you guys are doing this, it looks old school to me. And to be able to work a job, put enough money together, put a team together, which is, I mean, let's face it, in this era, trying to get young people to get on a team that can do this, almost impossible. I have the utmost respect for you guys and what you do.
Thank you. It's hardcore, man. You got to really want to do it. We
Yeah.
are fortunate here with our team. They've got some great young men, starting with my son Robbie. He's 27 years old, and he's got a total education in nitromethane. There's nothing on this car he couldn't do. Nothing from building the motors to setting the clutch to everything. And then we've got another young man. He's a couple years younger than Robbie. He's 24, 25. Will Ramos. And he does the right side of the engine for us. And he's been with us like 4 years. He's excellent. He's an Audi technician, and he took to the nitro like a duck to water. He's really good. Works his tail off. So we're fortunate to have some young people. Some people don't, and you got to have the next generation. It's got to come up and save us.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm glad to hear that you guys have some young people, because I know many teams out there right now are struggling just to get people that want to show up and work on these cars and go on tour. Are you guys at Boise with the Altereds?
No, we've never been to Boise. Just logistically, that's a haul, man.
Yeah.
I would love to go. I would do it if we had the finances to do it. I would do it. But until that happens, it'd just be I just watch. But yeah.
Well, it's like Tyler Hilton said to me. I understand that this is a West Coast sort of deal. It really is.
We're good friends with the Hiltons. I don't know how they do it. We're committed, and they're like crazy committed. I don't know how they do it.
Bobby, I love Bobby. He is the man.
He's as hardcore and old school as they come. I'm glad to call him a friend. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yep.
Well, here's several things I'm hoping for. First, I'm hoping to see you down at J Ed's. That'd be great. Maybe we talk to you down there. And I'm hoping that we can get cameras on you more than just Bowling Green this year. I'm operations manager for the company I work for. So, my life is tied up too and trying to earn a paycheck.
Yeah.
But I have to pick and choose. And I'm hoping as more years go by here, I'll be able to pick and choose more. So, but I'm going to try and get more cameras on you than just Bowling Green this year.
Awesome, man. Come on. We're always welcome in our pit, Randy. I appreciate everything you do for the sport.
Well,
and you're right there on the starting line taking it too, man. I see you out there, and God, he's just right there taking it. I see when I'm 2 or 3 cars back, I can see you just getting hammered, by nitro and sweat and rubber and everything else. And that dude's hardcore. Look at him out there.
Mike Couch, who spent all the years in a starting line, he said to me one time, he goes, "You're out of your mind. You're insane." He goes, I don't know why you do that. He goes, "First of all, I would have never even allowed you to stand where you're at." And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to be respectful of these racers. I never, I talked to David Layton, and I asked him, "Am I doing okay?" And he said to me, "If you weren't, I'd be kicking your ass off the starting line." I always try to make sure I am never in your peripheral view when you guys are getting to the ready line. I don't want myself to be involved in the race in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's how I approach it. And if I can get the best shot, then I get the best shot. If I can't, so be it. It is what it is. But
you got some great footage. We all appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, Dan, I appreciate you coming on here tonight, and I hope we see you down the road. And don't be surprised if I shove a mic in your face down at Bowling Green or wherever we happen to see you out on the trail.
Could I mention a couple things real quick?
You sure can.
Just our supporters, if it'd be all right.
Yes, that's fine.
We couldn't do this without help, as you alluded to. But CP Carrillo, Ohio Crankshaft. And we're just proud to announce that we just got signed with Maxima Racing Oil with Troy Green just in the last few days. So I'm really happy to do that, to be on their team. And our friends at C&M Powder Coat, SCE Gaskets, Bruiser Brand Apparel. And I think that's all. But we couldn't do it without their help. And, of course, our crew, man, Macy Ludoff, his daughter, she runs our store basically, and she mixes nitro and packs shoots. She's great. She's also a youngster coming up in the sport. Will Ramos, like I mentioned to you before, my son Robbie, Gary Potikian. That's our crew, and we do it. We do it like I try to tell people. Why do we do this? We do it for heart and soul, man. We're soul nitro racers. So anyway, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for giving me that list, because support right now dollars are hard to come by, and I'm glad that you guys have people on board with you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Dan, we appreciate you coming on. We will see you out there in the trail someplace, guaranteed.
Oh, man,
We'll run
come on
into you.
by anytime.
We might track you down as the year goes on here, maybe later in the summer, and just see how things are going for you and have a chat then too.
For sure. I'd love to talk to you anytime.
Okay, Dan.
Yeah,
We appreciate it, and we've got other guests coming up here next week. We have who have we got here? We've got Ryan Kono coming up next week. Next Monday, he's going to be on the program to talk about that funny car that those guys run and
love
their
that
program.
car. Love that car.
So, all right, Dan,
All
take
right,
care.
man.
We'll talk to
See
you
ya.
soon.
Right on. Take care.